Hello, you're listening to the Neil Lampton Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
We stopped the rot in the result sense. Not too sure whether you could describe what was on the pitch as anything but rot against Blackpool. Neither of you were there, but even still, we're going to endeavour to do some moments of the week. Neil, do you care to kick us off?
Oh, yeah. I was hoping I would be able to tell you that my moment of the week was me being picked for kick it for a ticket, but hasn't happened again. So that's gone out the window. But my moment's just winning, really. Not, I didn't really take much notice of the game, but just keeping ourselves in with a fighting chance is good for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Paul?
3 monumental things happened this weekend. One, my eldest daughter swam 5 metres, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
Is that badge-worthy?
2, pardon?
Is that badge-worthy?
It is badge-worthy.
Oh, I'm very proud of her. Well done.
Yeah. Number 2, my youngest daughter walked off her own fruition for the first time in our presence.
Wow. Okay.
Double nice.
And probably even more amazing than either of those two was Fortune scored from 2 yards.
Oh, there we go.
Lovely job.
2 of those things I did sort of expect to see this weekend. Fortune scoring wasn't one of them. Kudos to the big man, who's now 1 in, 12 or something? Or 2 in 16 like that, or something?
Blistering, isn't it?
Yeah, that was going to be my moment of the week. Cometh the hour, cometh Marc-Antoine Fortuné, as the saying goes, who shocked everybody by having, I guess, what you would describe as an all-right game, which made him somehow look like Pele in comparison to what he's normally like. He was, to be fair, he was probably our man of the match before coming off, but I wouldn't necessarily say that was much to go off.
What I enjoy is now it's on form, Marc-Antoine Fortuné. It's like, yes, come on, Marc, you've done 97 minutes worth of good football.
Yeah, it's you talk to the Wigan fans, that's 97 more than he did for them.
True.
I don't want to sound churlish about it because I've complained about him all season, and he was all right on Saturday, and I gather he was decent against Shrewsbury, but it's probably more of an indication of the levels that we've dropped to since the new year, rather than the quality of Marc-Antoine Fortuné, isn't it?
Strong chance. Yeah.
I suppose the big question: how good were Blackpool that Fortuné starred?
Oh, should we get into it? This is going to be really difficult for me because I've got very little to say about this, because it's not really a match that bears talking about. Blackpool were awful. Blackpool were crap, but then so were we, really. They had 12 shots each in total. Blackpool had more shots on target than us. It wouldn't have been at all surprising. I don't know if this has been widely reported, but were you aware that in the 97th minute they had a goal disallowed?
Yeah, because was it obviously disallowed, or was everybody crying thinking it had gone in?
At first, so we were, most of the Cov fans would have been a fair distance away from it, and I was in the other corner from where it was. I thought it was a goal. But very quickly, I thought it was a goal when it happened, but then very quickly you could see the referee running and the linesman and everything. So for a split second...
Because we had Clive Eakin telling us it was, it's an own goal, oh God. And then we had the bloody guy next to him trying to shut him up. Like, it's not, don't worry about it.
It was, like I say, there were so many sort of players in that area that you couldn't tell immediately, or at least I couldn't. I'm sure there were some eagle-eyed Cov fans that are laughing at me right now. But yeah, it was very, very quickly cleared up by the fact that, sometimes you see players appeal for something, and then sometimes you just see players going, well, that's not a goal because you can't punch the ball in. And they didn't look bothered about it. They weren't like, oh my God, what if they were just like, well, you just punched it in. We watched the replay.
Didn't he walk away rubbing his fist?
Yeah.
I seem to remember. It's like, that hurt.
He had the look on his face a little bit similar to Vincelo did when he scored against Burton, where it was sort of like, if I don't celebrate, they'll know something's up. But equally, I can't really celebrate it because they're going to surely know that something's happened. He was. I mean, I've seen it back since, and he punched it in. I remember saying at the time, it just seemed crazy because it felt like he could have got his head on it. But looking at it back, I don't think he could have done really. But it did highlight that actually, if it wasn't for the fact that their finishing was just, I mean, even by the standard of some of the dross that we've seen this season, wayward, horrendously wayward. It was almost like the players were protesting against the Oystons. It was just like they were saying, we can get it to the goal, and in theory we could get it in as well, but we're not as a protest. And look at how badly we're ballooning it over. It was quite shocking at times. But then that said, they had more attempts on target than we did. I think there's probably more to that, and I'll try and cover that off as we go through. Starting from the back, Reece Charles-Cook was steady. I think it helped him that he had very little come at him, and that which did was pretty easily dealable. Albeit, again, I guess that's an opportunity at the end there that he could have easily had headed past him. But for now, we're giving the benefit of the doubt, which is a pretty solid performance. Jack Stevens, it was the perfect game for Jack Stevens, where Blackpool had failed to watch us play at any point, or at least read the memo of how to play against us, and didn't really put us under pressure at the back. And he was able to sort of calmly walk the ball out on a regular basis. But again, you can't be too churlish, and you can only beat what's put in front of you, blah, 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 blah. He played all right. Ricketts, I don't really remember. Defence in total really was a bit sort of non-entity-ish. Do you know what? This is going to be a very short rundown of this game. The whole team was pretty non-entity-ish. From the defence, you've got Fleck, who again had a much better game. ... against a team who didn't put them under any pressure and were totally awful. So how much can you read into it? Vincelo again slightly better. The most concerning thing I would suggest were when you get ahead of those. I've seen the match report from the club, which says that when Andy Rose came on, we switched to a 4-4-2. And I think we're going to get into the realms of one of our favourite topics of discussion, which is the redundancy of attacking formations. Until Rose came on, and it did palpably become a very sort of straight 4-4-2, I really couldn't see who was where. I couldn't see you just got four people sort of nominally attacking, and I thought that if anything, it was already a 4-4-2 with Maddison on the right and Murphy on the left. That's what it seemed like, but I don't know when you've got Marc-Antoine Fortuné and Adam Armstrong up front pretty much together. How is that a 4-2-3-1? Anyway, like I say, redundancy of attacking formations, we've done that to death, haven't we? Murphy was, if we go through one by one of the attackers, Murphy I thought was genuinely quite a lot better. I thought he was our liveliest player. I was quite dismissive of his set-piece delivery during the game, but having watched it back, actually it was pretty good. And he did put the ball in for the goal. Sorry, Neil, go on.
That's a new one, isn't it? I mean, he's not been on them at all. I mean, wonder what that was. You've got Maddison and Fleck both pretty keen on them.
I've seen him away from home a few times. I think against Scunthorpe away, and a couple of other times I've seen him take... where else was it that he scored that screamer? Walsall. I think he was taking a bunch of the corners there.
True, yeah.
But you're right. It's not even necessarily that we have that he hasn't done it before. So much as your other point is that when you've got Maddison, Fleck on the pitch, he was just quite a curious. And that Joe Cole took over. By the way, Joe Cole, more on him later. Joe Cole took over when he came on. But actually, like I say, I thought that during the game I was probably a little bit dismissive of them. But having watched them back, he put them in some really dangerous areas. He had a couple of shots that flashed across goal. He did a couple of run-ins. Just generally looks a little bit brighter than he had. Again, ... I mean, you can. I'm not going to say that anymore. You can just read into it that's what I mean with everything. Maddison was awful again.
Really?
Yeah, Maddison.
In what sense? Was it just the weakness, or was it his touch, or he couldn't get into it?
I think the temptation is to say that since the Norwich deal went through, he hasn't been the same player. And I fear that isn't an accurate representation of the situation, because I think implicit in that is that his motivation has somewhat died off. And I don't think his motivation has died off. I think his quality has died off. And I don't know whether that's a case of the team being worse or whatever else, but he's just not... The things that were working for him previously aren't working anymore. And I don't think it's his head's dropped or blah, 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 blah. To me, it just looks like he's not playing as well. And I don't know...
Do you not think that maybe he plays well because before he was a hero and he was treated as such, whereas now he's not? Like, there was that joke that Jim O'Brien did when he sort of after the match he posted a photo of Maddison already on his phone checking it, or everybody sort of giving him kudos for he's a good player. I don't feel like since he's moved, he's obviously had to endure what is now the normal life of a footballer, where you're going to get more grief sometimes. And do you reckon that's got any influence over him? I always thought they just made him a big head.
Could it also be the fact he's just not a right winger and he's actually a number 10 and he's better in the centre of the pitch, and shifting him from left to right to centre regardless? It's not even like in the last 5 games you say, well, he's played number 10 in every game and his performance has dropped off. In the last 5 games, he's played in arbitrary about at least 3 different positions. And I think when you're 19, playing in all those different positions in a struggling side, you're not going to look as good as you will do playing in one position in a successful side.
So to try and take those points separately, Neil, I completely agree with both of them, and I think there's a great deal more that goes into the pot to explain it away. I think, Neil, to your point, yeah, absolutely. When I say that it's not the sort of motivation, it's the quality, I also don't want to get confused there when it's entirely possible that the motivation is different to sort of overall psychology or whatever. The point I was more making was that it's not for want of trying. He isn't hiding from games. He isn't sort of just, he's not trying to not take responsibility. He's doing the same things as he was. They're just not working as far as I can tell. And equally, that could very much be mentality, I guess, as opposed to motivation. I know they might seem like incredibly narrow margin differences, but do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah, completely agree. They only take the smallest margins to make him not, drop his shoulder and go past a player and then nick it away from him. It could just be that slight hesitation in movement which actually causes it. So, yeah.
And I think, having sort of reflected on last week's pod, I think all 3 of us were quick to come up with different reasons for our current malaise. But I think that one thing that we would all agree on, I imagine, is that mentality is at the root of it, one way or another, isn't it? I think mentality...
Feels like it.
Yeah, and I think that's absolutely true. Paul, to your point, I think I completely agree, he's not a right-sided midfielder / right winger, whatever formation we were playing. The only thing I would say to that is that he didn't seem to struggle with being moved around earlier in the season. So he was able to play across...
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
At the start of the season, he played in one position, didn't he? He played in the centre. Everyone else built around him. He was then injured for about 4 months, where he didn't play after the Walsall game, which I think was the 3rd or 4th game in. Up until that point, he had been played as the number 10, and they had Ramirez on one side or Jim O'Brien on one side, and then Murphy was brought in to replace him, wasn't he? Yeah,
but they were pretty fluid.
Oh yeah, there's fluid, but there's also your starting position. I think his starting position, when he goes back to basics and he's played through the middle, which is where he gets... When you're in the middle, you've got more options, haven't you? When you're out wide right, you've got fewer options. I think, and it's a bit like my argument with, if you've got Joe Cole, why the fuck are you going to love him on the left wing, where he's not going to be as influential in the game, because A, he's got to do more tracking back, so naturally he's going to be out of position a bit more and he's got to get into the right position, and B, you're limiting his options of where he can go. He can only really go one way.
Based on the go on, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was just very quickly going to say, based on the Blackpool performance, I can think of a very significant reason why you wouldn't want Joe Cole involved in the game, but carry on.
No, I just think Maddison has got a lot of extra pressure on him for the fact that he was the homegrown boy and he's now been sold to Norwich. I just think we're not helping him by the fact that I don't think he's played 3 games on the bounce in the same position since he's come back from his injury. And I don't personally, I don't think that's helping him.
No, I don't think it's helping him. And like I say, I think it's that and many other reasons that have contributed to a dip off in form. But I think it's beyond doubt that it's difficult to see the same player that we sort of were wetting our pants for earlier in the season. Anyway, that's him. Murphy was good. Armstrong, I just love. He wasn't particularly impactful against Blackpool. He had one effort that I thought he just pulled wide, but there was quite a good save. I don't know how I didn't notice that there was a corner straight afterwards, but there you go. But there were flourishes, especially in the first half, where just his footwork and his ability to manipulate the ball in tight situations is just like Madison-esque, as daft as that sounds. It was just different class, and I just think he's a player that I don't. I really love him. I think he's just a real talent. I am concerned about the lack of goals away from home all the way through the season. I am concerned about the run that he's on at the moment, but I think a striker of the nature that he is likely to not score goals if we're not getting the ball to him. I just think that's what he does. And maybe that's too loving an appraisal of the guy that he is. Maybe that's too forgiveful. Forgiveful? What word am I looking for there?
Nice.
Forgiving.
Well, it doesn't matter whether or not he's scoring goals or not, because he's going to miss 2 of the next 3 games anyway, isn't he?
Yeah. And then finally, Marc-Antoine Fortuné, as we touched on. The key to Fortuné, that game, is the ball wasn't necessarily pinged up to him to chest down and hold. What he got a tremendous amount of, and what presumably happened against Shrewsbury, were ball to feet, one-touch hold and lay-off. And because he'd got Armstrong and Murphy in close proximity, he continually had a ball to roll on. And there was quite a lot of times where his first touch was a really nicely weighted pass, in fact, where it was in front of them to run onto, but by the time they'd got to it, it had pretty much stopped dead for him exactly where they'd want it. It was really quite... I kind of looked at it and went, oh, you've got a thing then. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit like, oh, right, you can do something. But he was slightly better. I think the main thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of the actual team were the substitutes. So the substitutes were...
Well, Joe, before we move on from Fortuné, we've got a question from the floor, from friend of the show, Mark Egan. And he said, is the improvement in Fortuné's form due to him actually starting matches?
You'd have to ask him. I don't know. He started a lot of matches earlier in the season. He was bullshit, so I don't know about that.
Well, I think it doesn't help him. I think that was only his second start in about 3 months, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he was wank 3 months ago.
But I think, he's not the sort of player who, when he comes on, particularly shines, is he? I mean, his biggest problem is the fact that when we bring him on for 20 minutes to go, what we really need is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and not Fortuné. Because normally when he's brought on, we need him to actually try and create or score a goal. And that's not his forte. At least from the start, where it starts even, he has the ability to try and bring others into play and not be used as a last-ditch wonder sub, more of a integral part of the build-up play.
Yeah, I also think that we should probably not get ahead of ourselves here. This is the sum total of 2 hours, because he came off in both games. Or did he come on against Shrewsbury, in fact? Either way...
No, he started.
Yeah, okay.
He started, didn't he? And then he came off, didn't he, against...
I think it's 2 hours in total of what people would at best describe as good performances. I don't think he's now... I just think and this is what's driving me mad at the moment, we're throwing ourselves into cycles now where we're like, oh yeah, we should be starting Fortuné because that's what the difference is. And then we start him and he's rubbish. And everyone's like, well, you've got to kick him out because he's crap.
I was just asking a question from the floor. Oh, the heck. So put that in your pipe, Mark. Don't ask questions in the future. You're only going to annoy people.
Well, I give you the answer. I don't know. I don't think it is him starting because I think he started earlier in the season and was dog popped. But like I say, don't take this away from him because he was pretty good. Next, any more questions that I can dismiss that?
Well, not only other ones which No, that was the one most precedent at that time, which I really wish I hadn't bothered throwing in, to be honest.
Sorry.
But just carry on, Joey. We can edit this out. Just call someone we don't like a cunt, and then we'll have to edit it out.
Moving on to the subs, we've got... let's start with the good first. Tudguy came on. This season, I've warmed to Tudguy in quite a big way. And again, I don't think it's necessarily quality so much as effort. I just think, do you know what, actually, you come on every so often, you do try really hard, you've scored the odd goal this season. I think he's got 4 this season.
One more than Chris Stokes?
Or
is it 2 more than Chris Stokes?
2 more. Yeah.
2 more than Chris Stokes?
But he's not played very often, and I think he especially in a game like that, remind me to talk about sort of how the game went on tactically in a second. It worked. He was useful for us, and it worked. Andy Rose came on to turn it into what I genuinely do think was a much more natural 4-4-2 with him on the right. I thought he looked quite reasonable there. I think I've got to be careful because I think I can see myself taking a shine to Andy Rose, despite the fact that he might not ever be very good. I feel
like I'm the opposite with him.
Oh, really?
I can't see me ever liking him.
I like how big he is. Why do you not? What do you think there is that you might have taken against Neil?
I don't know, but then again, this may be why I didn't like Chris Stokes. I have a vision of what I think a footballer should be and what they should look like, and there's something about him. There's something about him which puts me off about his sort of approach to things. But I won't write him off like I did with Stokes because I was proved wrong there, I think. So I'm going to give him a chance to win me over.
I quite like how boring he is.
That might be why I don't like him, mate. Just because he comes on, I think, oh, Andy Rose is coming on. The man is going to do something. And he's not really, is he?
I think he's another player who, as a substitute, he's normally brought on to try and change the way the flow of a game, and he's not really that sort of guy, is he? Like, I don't think I've ever seen him come on and thought, he's really adapted to this game. Normally the game passes him by a little bit.
The tactical thing I was going to mention was that him coming on saw us shore up amazingly. So he was brought on really with a view on set pieces, I imagine. He's a big lump, and he came on for Maddison on the hour mark, and you could see a notable shift in, we're going to grind this result out, which I normally think is something that worries me. But in this game, it did make sense, given the run that we've been on and how shit Blackpool were. You got the impression that they still had a set-piece in them that they could have popped in, and that bringing Rose on for Maddison, who wasn't playing particularly well anyway, was, I think, in retrospect, a really sensible decision. Oh, bless you. He got up and down the right-hand side, did his defending pretty well. He put in some pretty tasty balls, but largely... It's just the excitement of seeing someone that you've not seen very often. If that had been Carl Baker, I'd probably said it was a shit game for him. But I do like how, I just like how big and robust he looks. He looks like he could sort of ably bring up kids and fetch firewood and stuff like that. I'd say that.
That's basically you want to run away to the mountains with him.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he could carry me to the mountains. I don't even think he'd matter. And I'm quite fat. I think he'd just be able to carry me. It'd be fine. And finally, Joe Cole. Joe Cole had what I would describe as a game to forget when he came on. It's the sort of performance that you get away with in a 1-0 away win when 3,000 people go and drink Blackpool dry afterwards. If that had been a home game that we'd have lost, I think he would have come under significant scrutiny for that performance. He couldn't hit a barn door. Just like 30-yard crossfield passes to areas of space without a player in them within 50 yards. Just like backheeled flicks directly out of play. Just everything went wrong. He just looked like a guy in a Joe Cole disguise. Just like a normal bloke, but with it, like if you'd have been like, oh yeah, it's Joe Cole, except he's going bald and he's a bit sort of rubbish. You just be like, well, that's not what Joe Cole is it? It'd be like, yeah, that's pretty much.
Very worried about him. isn't it? It's not. I
It's
thought
not
he was
working for him.
Yeah, I thought he picked it up, but maybe he was just riding the crest of, that one game, which he looked good in. I was like, oh, it's brilliant. But no, it's whether it's how many games did he played in a week? He just came on, didn't he? For about half an hour.
Last 20 minutes, yeah. But he was like
it's a worry.
He was like noticeably Stephen Hunt against Barnsley poor.
The thing, Neil, I think you made a really prevalent point a couple of weeks ago where you said something along the lines of, we don't want him to be our Ledley King, where he only plays now and then.
Yeah.
And the major difference between Joe Cole and Ledley King is when Ledley King played, he was still one of the best players on the pitch. It doesn't seem to matter what we're trying to do with Joe Cole at the moment. Whether he starts once every 3 weeks or 3 times a week, it's not working for him. And you worry that it's just... I think... I can imagine we could go and watch... Us three could go and watch training and be like, Joe Cole has still got it. And then go and watch the game on the Saturday and see the guy flounder a bit like he is. I think there's definitely a lack of energy about him. I mean, the last home game, he looked absolutely knackered after about half an hour. He's just not where he needs to be, and we've been persevering with him for a long time now, and it's not working out. And it's a shame because we all hoped it would, but we've got to put, the half an hour or 45 minutes against Bury into the box of what it was, which was a Bury team who had lost the will to live and was slightly in awe of the fact that they were getting skimmed by Joe Cole. But the games leading up to that and the games post that, he hasn't really provided anything. And my worry is, unless he takes a really good set piece, is he adding anything to the team?
Well, I think we're nearly at that point, aren't we? Where I don't know how many games do you think he's played or appeared in. I guess is the more relevant thing. 10.
I'm guessing. No,
20.
I'm guessing it's around 20. Yeah.
Do you reckon it's as many as that?
If you
would have thought so.
I'll tell you in a minute or two.
I'll flannel. Well, I think of
talk amongst yourselves.
I think of now. I'm probably going to get stick for this, but whatever. And I know that there's an age difference, etc. But anyway, I think about Marlon King coming in, and everyone's saying, "Oh, he's out of prison and he's not played," and blah 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 blah. And he had the first 12 games. I think he scored once. I want to say, but during those 12 games, you were like, "Oh, you can see a player in there." I reckon.
Yeah.
He's just not fit enough. And then as that started to run out, he then just hit it. He was just fit, and he was. You were like, oh, right, okay, you are a Premier League striker, but you're just an arsehole. I just can't see it with Joe. I can't see that same ability, and I can't see him. He's not regaining fitness in that way, is he? He's been.
Okay, he started 12 and come on as a sub 3 times.
Okay, but I just can't see him. I can't see him ever reaching that level. Can you?
Yeah, it's the problem because, like you say, with Marlon King, when he wasn't, we pick up the things when people do things well. So it's assists, it's goals, all those sort of stuff. But when Marlon King wasn't doing that, he was still playing well and showing himself to be a good footballer. And like you say, we can be a little bit blinded with Joe Cole when he puts in a good set piece or he does a nice turn or something. You think, yeah, we got football there. But it's the rest of the stuff. It's the rest of being in the team when you need someone in that position to have a good game, even if they're not setting up goals or anything. It's either he'll do something good or it's just a poor performance. There's no sort of, at least, sort of sticking out for the team.
Other than the Bury game, has he actually created a goal from open play?
Yeah. I was going to say yes. Then.
And he's obviously scored that great free kick against Barnsley, which, will always go down as one of my happy moments. But other than that awesome free kick, I can only remember the shot in the last home game as even time he's been in the box and looked like he might score. I think, and this was my worry when we first signed him, is are we put too much stock in a Joe Cole that we all remember? And the reality is, over the last couple of years, he's floated around a couple of clubs and never really gone anywhere.
Well, it's the whole thing about legs going. If you watch Joe Cole play, his legs are as close to going as they can be, aren't they? He's got no burst of pace beyond like a couple of yards. It's just he has to. Everything's done within his sort of little gift within his like 6 meter diameter. It's kind of that's it. Beyond that, there's no sprinting past players anymore. And if he does do that, he's not going to carry on. And he just doesn't look. He's got the jelly legs, hasn't he? It's a shame because his mind will always be, of a good footballer, but it's just not. He's not anymore, is he?
Well, I think even in his 60s, he'll still be able to play a wonderful 30-yard pass to someone's feet. That will, those sort of skills will never leave him. But that doesn't mean he deserves a place in the first team when you've got to do other things and you're put under pressure. And
this is what I mean when Paul Merson and people like that rip up League One about the same age. Wow, so well, why can't he do it?
Yeah.
I think there is still something to be said for the fact that he just started so young in his career and he's been playing football for so long. I think he's just played out. I think that's it, really. And it doesn't help being played on the left wing. I just can't imagine that's going to be... But, I think you've got to make a decision with 10 games to go, haven't we? Do we persevere with Joe Cole and hope he has enough good performances that he wins us a game or creates something, or do we take him out and play other players who are likely to be in better form?
Who knows? Questions, decisions. Yeah, I think that's everything I've got to say about it. In fact, probably that was more than I'd got to say about Blackpool. I'm amazed that I managed to talk about it for that amount of time. Overall conclusions, I would say don't get your hopes up. This isn't a corner turned, I wouldn't suggest. It was sort of a defeat against a team that were very, very, very poor, but we weren't much better.
I think you summed it really nicely in your post-match tweet where you said a 6 out of 10 Coventry beat a 4 out of 10 Blackpool.
Yeah, and I think in retrospect that was probably quite
fine to both sides.
yeah, I think, but probably more kind to us. But a win's a win, and actually I think, bearing in mind that we've been, and a lot of people have been very critical about Tony Mowbray over the last few weeks, I think there is something to be said for the fact that he did close that game out, and it was very much, I felt, that he made a set of decisions that were, we're going to win this game 1-0, and we did do it. So I think he's got to be given credit for that, whether that was because there wasn't much they did to test us, or whether that's because we nullified them. We can debate that till the cows come home, but we're not going to, because it's not worthwhile.
But the worry is now, and it is a worry, because, like you say, we got that win. It keeps us within 3 points and a win off 6th place. But the form required to do what we want to do, which is get into the playoffs, is we need to win, let's say, 7 out of 10 games. Now, in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to want to get into the playoffs, winning 7 out of 10 games is fine, because if you're good enough to do that, you're good enough to be in the playoffs. The problem we've got is we're hoping, I think, to stumble our way into the playoffs somehow, because we know the team that is there isn't the same that it used to be. And that's the annoying thing. Because so, on the face of it, yes, we're still in there, but if they don't start playing well, they're not going to be playing well enough to be a playoff team. Why? Why has this happened?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, Neil, and I think you're almost no point actually analysing the Blackpool game in terms of what it means for the rest of the season. In the same way that it almost meant nothing beating Bury 6-0, because that one-off game against a shit side wasn't the turning point, or didn't really tell us anything. It's all about runs of games, isn't it? It's 1, 2, 3 games on the bounce of getting something out of those games. The fact that we lost the game before against Shrewsbury, if we'd have hung on against Shrewsbury and then beaten Blackpool, you would start to think that maybe something has changed. But the reality is, of our last 6 victories, 3 of the teams we've beat are 22nd, 23rd and 24th in the division. And you're saying we need to win 6 of the last 10. We're playing the team that's 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th. We've got quite a difficult run-in, and we're going to have to go to some of the teams at the top half in the top six. We've got to play 4 of the top 6, and we've got to beat at least 1 or 2 of those if we want to get into the top 6.
Exactly. I mean, ordinarily that would be fine, because if you're doing that, if you've got ambitions of being in the playoffs, fine, you've got to beat these teams. It's just because of where we are and how far we've fallen, isn't it? So it's this illusion of still being in the playoff race, when in reality, like you say, we're not playing well, haven't done for a very long time, and the occasional wins aren't really masking what has been quite a dramatic fall in quality.
I had a look earlier. I reckon there's still 14 teams with a chance of getting promotion this season, and we're in as well. We're 7th, so we're in a better position than half the teams I think are still in with a shout.
Swindon will have to win 8 out of 10.
Well, the reason I've still got Swindon there is because they've got a game in hand and they're 6 points behind us. So if they win their game in hand and they beat us, they go level on points with us. And I'm not going to write us off that quickly if we lose against Swindon, points-wise, if not performance-wise. So I think Swindon if we beat Swindon, they're out of it. They're not going to get enough points in the remaining 10 games to overall us, I don't think. So I think, for me, the Swindon result will then dictate whether or not Swindon are still within a playoff shout. But I think then you've still got to go down to Scunthorpe, who are only 7 points outside the playoffs. You know, that they could go on a run. It's going to be highly improbable, but, you know, they're 11. And the other thing this weekend is quite a few teams are playing, like Bradford, I think, are at Wigan, Millwall, Gillingham are playing each other, I think. I mean, there's quite a few games where other teams in the top 8 are playing each other. Mm. So it's a good opportunity for us to, if we could beat Swindon, to move back in not only to the playoffs, but also catch up with teams like Millwall as well.
I think the other thing to bear in mind, going back to Swindon just quickly, is also they have what is the form player in the league, don't they? So I think that whilst they might look like they're a fair way down, and whilst I think you're right, Neil, they would need to win an obscene amount of games, they've got, it's very, very fine. I know we're into cliche city here, but it's very fine margins in League One, isn't it? If you've got an absolutely on fire striker, you can
been there. Yeah.
Well, there you go. You can what's it? You can take it somewhere. He's got 20 in 30. He's got 6 in his last 4. That might be what takes you there.
And it's not just, they are one of the teams who are really in form. They've won 5 of the last 10. They've won 4 of the last 6. It's Swindon aren't. And this is why it's a good test, because the Blackpool game, in context, if we beat Blackpool and then follow it with a win against Swindon, then is a building block. If we lose against Swindon, then we just put Blackpool in they're a shit side, we beat shit sides category.
Have we just segged seamlessly into the Swindon preview there?
Oh, it would appear so. As you say, Swindon have one of the informed players in a Josie who's got 20 goals. They've got another player in 10 goals,
Jordan Obika, who was formerly at Jonathan Obika, who was formerly of Spurs. Is that right?
Yes. And Dorothy, who's got 4 goals. I mean, that's basically Swindon are 14th. They've won 14, drawn 7, and lost 14. They're the sort of side. I think they struggled at the start of the season, didn't they? Then they fired their manager, and their new manager has got them up to where they've been the last couple of seasons. Swindon have notoriously been one of the sides who've been pushing around the playoffs the last couple of years. And I believe they've sold 2,500 tickets for Saturday already.
Have they?
Keen.
Yeah, but they were looking to bring quite a few. I think they were looking to fill their away allocation, which obviously isn't that easy when we give teams 6,000. But at 20 quid a ticket, I think Swindon are bringing quite a few. Because obviously they know as well as we do that if they beat us, then game on in terms of trying to get into the playoffs.
And we are desperate to throw points at them over the last few years, aren't we?
We've had some bad ones, haven't we, down there?
We have given them points hand over fist in the last few years, haven't we?
We did it this year, didn't we?
Yeah, we had it. Absolutely cruising to a 2-0 victory and then drew 2-2. I
have no good memories of Swindon. I just don't have any. If I'm not driving straight over that roundabout, I'm just like falling into a ditch or something, and then we're losing. It's crap place.
I was at an Oktoberfest for that Swindon game most recently at Swindon. I didn't go to the game, and I looked at my phone and it was 2-0. And then I narrowly avoided having my head kicked in by a massive group of people. And then when I looked at my phone afterwards, we were 2-2. It was it was a bad day. I mean, it was certainly it was like a very bad 10-minute period. Yeah. And then we've just at their place over the last few years, we've just gone 1 or 2-0 up, haven't we, and chucked it away a couple of times.
Standard.
What else, Paul? What else have they got?
Their manager is Luke Williams, who was, in his 11 games has won 6, lost 2 and drawn 3.
Can I confess I've never heard his name ever before?
I always think I'd like to add something new to your life, Joey.
He's not the kid that we had on loan from Middlesbrough that everyone hated.
I was a bit worried.
That would be awesome.
Mastermind, yeah.
We know the Swindon game's massive. The 2 games after that are the Colchester game and the Gillingham game, where we're going to lose Maddison, Armstrong and Jack Stevens. Obviously, we've got Stokes is only out for a month, so there is talk of him playing Stephen Hunt at left back. And you wonder what could go wrong there.
Why
is there a lot of Ricketts moves to left back?
And put Lawrenson at right back?
That's fine.
Can't we call back Haynes? Is that too radical?
I think he wouldn't call back Haynes unless he knew he was going to play him. So he's going to try and persevere with. So this might happen on Saturday. We might have a left-hand side of Stephen Hunt and Joe Cole.
Oh, I'm going to be sick.
Yeah. Yeah. So our form obviously is we've won in our last 1. So we're 100%, and we're firing on all cylinders. And according to everyone, we played a man's game against Blackpool, and that's what's going to get us promoted. Is playing like men.
We didn't, though. It wasn't a blood and thunder game. It was like a water and 9-volt electric battery game. We didn't grind it out. It was just a grind.
But the thing is, we played Blackpool on Bury. We absolutely hammered them, and it didn't mean a jot for the next game. We beat Blackpool by not playing particularly well. Let's just hope it's just the win that the players need.
Yeah.
Maybe in their own psyche they need to believe they were backs against the wall, and it was a last-ditch wonder performance that's got them through.
In that
that's
case,
a single hope, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's because we've seen at least this season that each of these players is capable. And we've seen the capability of just how good the team can be. So if they've got 10 games left to somehow muster up that capability again, wherever it comes from.
I think, for me, it's not just critical for Swindon. I think if we lose against Swindon on Saturday, regardless of how many points we are outside of the playoffs, and the fact we'll have 9 games left, I just can't see us turning the tide enough. I think we have to come out of the Swindon game without being beaten.
Do you see that happening?
I honestly don't know what team he's going to pick or how he's going to go about it. I mean, it's...
Do you sympathise somewhat with this, or is it, again, the same thing as before? I mean, with Stokes getting injured and Armstrong not being available... Oh, Armstrong is available next week, isn't he? Sorry, on Saturday, yeah.
Yeah, it's difficult because he's built the squad he's built over the season. He's in the situation he is, where Murphy sounds like he's coming a bit back to form, and Joe Cole, Maddison are completely out of form, and his only other option is Lameres, who he always seems a bit reticent to come in. But you have to play these players. This is James Maddison's first real dip in form since he's broke into the first team. you've almost got to play him out of it.
Yeah, of course.
But there again, I can see him retaining Fortune up front and playing Armstrong alongside him. So that means whoever plays either Maddison or Joe Cole is going to be on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe go with Maddison again and hope it's a better performance. Ideally, you'd have he who shall not be named still here to play on the right wing. But I don't know, it's just really difficult at the moment, because I look at the squad and I just wonder, and I've said this for a while, I wonder who's going to drag us through the tough games. Against Swindon, I'd almost be tempted to change the formations a little bit and put Andy Rose in the centre midfield, so we don't have so much pressure on John Fleck and Winslow. And I know we went around this argument last week about changing the team and not changing the team, and we complain when we change the team and then complain when... But my argument, and I never really made it last week, was if Tony Mowbray's going to change the team anyway, then you might as well boost parts of the team which are looking a bit weak. And I do worry that the centre midfield, while they might have not been overrun against the shit Blackpool team, is somewhere where I would have thought Swindon would look to exploit.
Further to your point, I would suggest that a lot happens in, I think it would have been 5 games or 6 games since we were saying just keep a settled team. And you know what? Actually, like you say, it has rotated so much that team that we were talking about was the team that had played against Bury, and that a lot of crap has happened since then, and the parameters have changed. So I agree with you. I think there's reason to say, let's pick 11 players again now and try and stick with that. And actually, I wouldn't be totally averse to it being 12 players where you favour Rose in difficult situations and Fleck in more promising ones and play something more resembling a 4-4-2. I think you can I think you can almost get away with some level of rotation, a small amount, as long as you try and keep a settled back 4, and then try and bring Rose in for the tougher games, which I think Swindon is. And you bring Fleck in when times are good, or when you might need to roll the dice a little bit if you need to get a goal. I don't actually think that's a bad shout at all. I think as well, at a time where our biggest defensive frailty is set pieces, there is no problem with having more tall players on the pitch, is there?
No, I mean the only problem with that is the fact that obviously Jack Stevens is going to miss the 2 games over the Easter weekend.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to because of the squad we've got, he's going to have to play Ricketts at centre-half again when Stevens isn't here, which is why I think he might give Stephen Hunt the start on Saturday, so he can then play, instead of having to move players around each week, it's okay, Stephen, you're our left-back until Stokes returns, which, regardless of our opinion on Stephen Hunt, would be the most logical solution, because that is then giving one player one focus. Instead of going Ricketts, I want you to play left back on Saturday. Next Friday night you're playing centre half, and on the Monday after you're playing centre, or Tuesday after you're playing centre half, and then the Saturday after you're playing left back again. It would make sense to go, look, Stephen Hunt, you're our left back for the next month.
You know what would make more sense, don't you? It's time for your 3-4-3.
Well, yeah, that's not going to happen either.
It's time for the Paul Knowles patented 3-4-3. Why even, let's go Ricketts, Stevens and Martin. And then, I mean, it doesn't even matter, does it? Just to throw a load of players in the pitch. That would get me back up. At a time where I'm really despondent about watching Carv, if he came out pre-game and was like, balls to you, and just put up a team sheet that was 3-4-3, I'd be like, this has got interesting again. I'd be like, oh, okay, Stephen Hunt at centre half, that'll do.
As been meandering nowhere for a minute, I'll throw out some of the other questions I was given.
Let's throw them at Neil, please. No one needs to hear me talking anymore.
From Max Bobfield, what players would you suggest we try to keep for next season?
Try to keep John Fleck. There's one. Vincelot. He's probably going to stay anyway. Balls to the rest of the loans, they're not going to be here anyway, so there's no point worrying about them. I wouldn't give up on Ryan Haynes. I know it's a bit of a odd one to bring in, but I just think there's still a chance for him. And I've always liked Aaron Phillips as well, but he's gone. But no, I think those two in the middle, key. Keep hold of them. And then I can't really tell about the rest because we know most of them are going regardless, aren't they? I mean, they're all loans or people who are just. I mean, I say Fleck there, but he's off. Pretty much, he's off unless we get promoted.
Maybe even if we get promoted.
Well, Mowbray spoke very highly of the fact that Marcus Tudguy has been quite happy to be treated like shit all season.
Yeah.
Is Marcus Tudguy a player who's worth hanging on for another year of? No. You know, he's probably not on a lot of money. He's quite happy not to play.
No.
When he does play, he plays like a man.
No.
It's just it's not worth for him. No point hanging on to him.
Fortuna, getting better.
Well, as much as I hate to slag off the on-form player, again, didn't work. Hasn't worked. There's no point hanging on to something and rewarding something that hasn't worked with, an extra contract, an extension to his contract. It doesn't make any sense. It's the whole David Bell scenario again. Here you go, David. We're going to give you 4 extra years because you've played so poorly. No, you sack them off, all of them.
I've got to be honest, there's one player who I think does deserve the chance to cement his place in the first team for next season. I think Aaron Martin deserves a lot more credit than he's got.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
I think
agree.
His injury has probably meant, especially after Raider Johnson and Ben Turner, I thought his injury then has become really highlighted since he was out, and then his return has returned. He's seen the defence look a bit more solid. And he's definitely improved on last season.
I think if you think about when he came back into the team earlier this season and how heavily vilified he was amongst Cov fans and how quickly he put that to bed, he's had a really good season, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Matt, whose Twitter handle is Roman Wins a Lot, said, if we do make it into the playoffs, how many defibrillators should I bring with me?
Toss of a coin, isn't it, really? Whether we do well or not. I don't know whether to treat this in any sense legitimate. It's going to be hard work if we get into it. Just because of how, especially from this point, because to get into it, we have to play well again, and we have to win a lot of games. And if we win a lot of games, we're all going to go balmy and think that we're going up. So it will be a killer now if we do make them, and it's just going to be hard for us regardless.
Right, Andrew Dudcock, whose Twitter handle is Andrew_Dudcock, says, will losing 3 key players for 2 games make much of a difference?
Well, yes, it will make much of a difference because we're pretty poor at the moment with these key players. I don't really know what's going to happen without them. I just, no. I think realistically, especially if we play... How many games? Is this the one after the Swindon game, or have we got a couple of games before it?
No, we've got Swindon this weekend, and they missed the Gillingham game, which is next Friday on Sky, and the following Tuesday against Colchester. The advantage is Colchester are so uber shit, but I'm pretty certain they could replace those 3 with us 3, and we'd have a good chance of winning.
Well, we could. There's nothing to say we can't win those games. It's a whole, especially if we do well this weekend. It's going to be a right ball ache if we suddenly start playing well again, and then immediately we have to change the team at a point in the season when we could do with trying to develop some sort of form. So it's a nuisance more than a definitive. It's going to kill us.
The final one, and I'm going to do what Joey did, but I'm going to read the question out anyway. Tom Simmons, T Simmons 1991 on Twitter. If you could sign one player from League One, who would it be?
Sign permanently.
It doesn't say permanently, but it doesn't say on loan either. So I'm going to go with permanently.
Adam Armstrong.
He's got you there, Tom Simmons.
Boom! Yeah.
I hate this question, and I can give one example why I hate this question, and that example is Ben Turner, or to some extent, probably a bigger example would be Joe Cole. And the reason I hate this question is when everyone goes, well, who would you sign? It's like, I don't know who's out there. I never thought, if you'd have asked me at the start of the season, who would you like to sign? And I'd have said Joe Cole, everyone would have pissed themselves. If I'd have said Ben Turner, a lot of people would have wet themselves. So we never know who's actually out there until, unless you're the manager of the football club and go, do you know you've got Joe Cole and you're not playing him? Is there any chance we can have him in League One?
We could flip this round and make it a bit more nicer and say, who are the players in League One that have impressed us this season? Because I think the question was, who would you sign from League One, was it?
Reece Brown impressed me.
But I think...
I'll tell you, seriously, who impressed me, actually, was Sawyer from Walsall.
Oh, yeah. Romain Sawyers, yeah. And the other one was Rico Henry, the left-back.
Yeah, you liked him, didn't you?
Yeah, I really liked him.
He looked something special, didn't he? Yeah.
There was Dan Bentley in goal for Southend, which is a game that I wasn't at, but saw the highlights, and everybody that was there said that he was just... he is potential England material, I believe, isn't he? He's quite something. He was called Aiton Oztema, I think, the really tiny Turkish lad.
Peterborough.
For Peterborough, who was exceptional in the first half and then didn't really bother turning up for the second.
Duffy, Burton, like him.
Oh, yeah, of course, on the wing, yeah.
The two centre-halves for Barnsley, actually, I thought played really well against us.
Was he Mark Rogers, I think, who got the first goal and got man of the match?
Yeah, they just looked like a proper solid League One centre-half partnership.
Yeah, very impressed. I thought Bradley Dack did everything that he could to keep Gillingham in the game in spite of everything that we were doing to him. So I think this season it's been quite interesting for me because I'll be honest with you, my eyesight isn't really good enough to read numbers on the backs of shirts, so I never really know who anyone is. So I've got a vague approximation of who's doing what for the opposition. But largely I just go off haircuts for us.
That's why Dak caught your eye, was it?
Well, yeah. But this season, I've seen a good number of really solid standout performances from opposition players. It's been, maybe there's just some good individuals, or maybe it's a bit of a good year for League One. Yeah. Is that it? Questions?
That's it. So thank you to my Twitter followers for those questions. It's been.
We'll dismiss more out of hand next week. Yeah.
And the other good thing with 10 games to go is we know how good we normally are in the last 10 games. Especially, I think we all remember the glory days under Chris Coleman where we tended to win one game after March.
Yeah.
So I think if we did manage to win 6 of our last 10, that would probably be 6 more than we normally do in the last 10 games.
Yep. Oh dear. Right, should we do the competition results and then close it up?
Oh yeah,
yes.
Competition
time.
So of the hundreds and hundreds of entries we had,
people have been entering this competition in their wands. This has been overwhelming response to this competition. I think it's a really good t-shirt, like legit a really good t-shirt. It's at art_of_football on Twitter, art-of-football.com on the website. Go and have a look at the t-shirt. It's like a nice drawing of Keith Houchin's goal in the 87 Cup final. It's a really nice t-shirt, but no one seems to have wanted it. That said, we did have some entrants, and we're going to give you the runner-up and then the winner's stories. So, Paul, if you could take it away with the runner-up, who is it?
It's Jack Greenfield, and I'm going to sort of start at the bottom of his email where it says, I know it's a shit story, but can I have a t-shirt anyway? I think you're underselling the story, but also, no, you don't get a t-shirt. My tale of woe comes from the season 05-06. This was my first year at University of Manchester. I had decided to go up to the away game at Crewe. Okay, Crewe's down from Manchester, so I hope you're in geography. And booked a train to meet my dad there. The night before, drinks were taken, and in my drunken stupor, my loving housemate removed my spectacles and hid them in the Christmas tree. Although the game was played at the end of March, we had some great uni banter, he's put in exclamation marks, and left the tree up all year. Needless to say, the next morning I couldn't find my glasses, got on the wrong train to Macclesfield, and I finally made my way to Crewe. My eyesight is so bad I couldn't see any of the game. We lost 4-1, and I was faced with an hour-long journey back home like Mr. Magoo.
I like the Magoo reference. Yeah, very good.
So, you don't deserve to win it for the word banter, but
He put it in
But
inverted commas.
he put him in exclamation.
yeah, I'm going to say you have sort of redeemed yourself a little bit. And the other interesting thing that was one of the first games that my now wife went to. And, we all remember Steve Staunton being so shit that we may have called him quite a few horrible names.
Jane's a curse, isn't she? She's a hex on our performances whenever she's there. Is that right?
The three ladies in my life are all a hex. None of them have seen us win.
Really?
So.
But Neil, do you want to reveal the winner?
I will, Joseph. It's already been mentioned once before. It's Tom Simmons. You know who you are, if you're listening. Let's read his story. And it's quite dramatic, actually. I was just catching up with it earlier. I feel sorry for him. My tale of Coventry City supporting woe is Nottingham Forest 2 versus Coventry City, who scored 1, 29th of December 2001. On the face of it, this doesn't immediately seem out of the ordinary as a Coventry fan. A narrow away defeat to a team that are probably better than us. However, the context is that I was travelling up from near Oxford for the game and unfortunately was overcome by a rather severe case of the post-Christmas runs. I was travelling with my Nottingham Forest supporting mate and my dad and had to ask him to stop at least 4 times on the journey so I could go and empty myself of a god-awful mixture of mince pies, Thornton's special toffee and Christ knows what else. Anyway, upon arrival at the ground, I was demoralised as anybody else would be to see a Sky Blues 11 containing Thomas Antonelius, Barry Quinn, Lee Fowler and, of course, the worst of the lot, Lee Mills. I was settled in for a chastening defeat, and that is in fact what I witnessed. The tale about really comes to a head when Yusuf Chipo gave us an unexpected lead around the half an hour in. I was unfortunately settled nicely on the bog in a shitty little wooden cubicle in the Brian Clough stand. I can't, therefore, tell you anything about the goal other than that I could hear a distant murmur of Coventry City fans celebrating. Once I finally managed to solve my bowel issue, I emerged from the depths of the City ground. What I witnessed was a typically abject Sky Blues performance, and Forest duly won 2-1 with goals from none other than Stern John and Nicky the Twat Summerby. I did the twat. I travelled home safe in the knowledge that supporting Coventry could never be worse than that day. But to be fair to Sky Blues, over the past 15 years, they've given it their best shot to prove me wrong. Hard day for Tom there.
Yeah, that is a complete bummer. Thank you to Tom. Congratulations.
Oh, that's a terrible pun.
We'll be what? Oh no, I wasn't genuinely wasn't a pun. A pun even. Congratulations to Tom. Thanks to Jack. Thanks everyone else for their entries. Special mention to Rob Jones's dad, because I think you sent us a couple of messages, Rob, about getting on, and unfortunately you didn't make the cut. But we do want to mention your dad because apparently he listens. Hello to both of you. Thanks to everyone that entered. Are we going to wrap this up?
Yeah.
It seems that way. If you want to get in touch, email address is neelamptyshow@gmail.com, but it seems like you all already have that, bearing in mind the number of entries that we got. Twitter is @neelamptyshow. We'll be back next week to talk about the Swindon game and Ryan Kent going to Sheffield United. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you for listening. Bye.